Welcome in, hail to the podcast brought to you by Maize Blue Review. We are closing the door ever slowly on fall camp, looking ahead to game week. We are 6 days as of Sunday today while we record this live away from a Michigan football game, kickoff to the 2024 season. We are excited. Football is here. So we're going to give you the kind of the latest on where things stand with some of the position battles, what will bleed into the season, maybe what we have more clarity on, and what it all means for that week one contest against Fresno State. And then again, it's kind of hard not to look ahead to week two with Texas coming to Ann Arbor. And at the top of the show, we will acknowledge briefly the NOA news that came out today and some things we've heard. Spoiler alert, nothing's changed, but we'll get into that. So joined by the trio, or well, you're the duo, we're the trio, whatever. The three of us are here today, starting with Josh Henschke, Intel Insider Publisher. Haircut, but beard still growing.
Haircut, yes.
Professional rivals polo.
Trim the beard a little bit.
Looking good. How you feeling?
Annoyed, but how's that different from any other day?
It's been 9 or 10 months of this, dude. It's
just
crazy.
Just consistent state of grumpiness, but it is what it is. Got that out of the way in the first minute and a half.
It is what it is. Less than a minute and a half into the show.
1 minute into the podcast.
That is impressive.
I'm miserable.
I have a really good Circuit City reference that will also be very early in the show here. So we'll get to that in a moment. Our man in the sky, the guy that attends all the games for us, joining us from the Christmas room today, Brock Heilig, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be back in the big house on Saturday. It's going to be fun. Listen, I'm convinced that Michigan could go out there and lose to Fresno State, and Alex Orji could look awful, and Josh could still slip in it is what it is on the Sunday night podcast if Michigan drops to 0-1.
It's become impressive. He doesn't even mean to do it. That's the best part about it. So, right. So, Josh, do me a favor. Tell everybody about our friend West, and then, like I said, we'll cover the NOA thing briefly. Not going to be anything new to any of our Michigan.Rival subscribers, but we'll touch on that briefly. And then we're going to do what everybody wants us to do, and we're going to talk football.
Yep, absolutely. Before we do that, though, obviously I want to shout out my friend Wes Romberger at My Perfect Franchise. Thank you for sponsoring the show as always. Would you like to escape corporate America for good? Maybe you'd like to start a business on the side and keep your corporate gig. Wes can help. Wes is a franchise consultant as well as a business owner and can help you find a franchise that fits your skill set, financial requirements, how much time you have to commit, and more. A franchise is a business startup and operations kit, perfect for those with general business skills but who may not have specific knowledge on starting and running a small business. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help you if you have any questions about business ownership. You can reach him by phone at 512-970-7478, or you can see him on the web at myperfectfranchise.net/aboutwest. Again, that's 512-970-7478, or you can see him on the web at myperfectfranchise.net/aboutwest. And his information, it will be in the description of the podcast. Also on YouTube in the description. So anywhere you can find our podcast, you'll also have his information to find and have handy as well.
Great job, Josh.
Thank you.
I did find this a little funny though. Making Josh.
I'm always grumpy, so it doesn't matter.
If you want me to do it moving forward,
maybe I'm just extra spicy today.
You're annoyed for the same reason I'm annoyed, and I'm sure Brock is as well. Which is the drip, drip, drip. The, again, timing of things. And then just that, this just continues to be out there while other programs seemingly don't have to deal with it. But look, Michigan has received the notice of allegations in regards to the Stallions advanced scouting investigation, which has largely turned into a non-compliance argument and mostly low recruiting violations, right? The big news for me is there is no news. And what I mean by that is this is what we expected. It was going to come soon, not long after the draft, right before the Stallions doc, right before the season starts. Again, I know everybody goes, why do you care about the timing? It's just convenient how many times this keeps happening. Sorry, it's annoying. It's annoying. Other programs don't have to deal with this constant drip, and here we are, right? So the reason I say it's nothing new, though, is this isn't just me, Michigan Slappy, okay? Wetzel, who reported it, Ross Dellinger, Mr. Pete Thamel, right? And Nicole Auerbach, the people who have been leaking this stuff out, have all said the same thing, which is from the draft, most of it remains, which again, if you don't understand what that means, if most of it remains, that means something was gone, right? No lack of institutional control was in the draft or has been added. Lack of monitoring is not in there, right? If you guys actually read the stuff in the draft, right? So nothing has changed in terms of that. So the timeline we're on now, Michigan has 90 days to respond. That very easily could be pushed back, as we've seen in multiple cases. NCAA has 60 days to respond. That could be pushed back. I brought up the Kansas case, which took a year before they even got the NCAA's response from the initial notice of allegations, and then lawyers have it. And who knows how long it could take for that. Again, Kansas took 3 years. I don't think this is going to take that long. Obviously, if Michigan and the NCAA come to some sort of resolution, then we'll hear about it quicker. But this is just the start of it. Yeah, you got the NOA. This was expected. Now the clock starts, but it's not a fast ticking clock by any means. So that's where we are. Again, I said if I see anything new or different, I'll adjust, but I'm in the same spot. The level 1 allegation against Stallions for the scheme and for being on Central's sideline was the only reference to the advanced scouting scheme, other than, again, a level 2 for Schroen deleting texts before he was asked for them, then turning them over, and there was nothing in there, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, Josh.
Yeah. I want to respond to some allegations here too. There's plenty of them going around in the comments right now about my hair.
Oh God.
I do not unequivocally deny the allegations that I go to Great Clips. I do not go to Great Clips. I have a barber. Shout out Tom, my barber. He's awesome. So I want to nip those allegations in the bud right now. Do not go to Great Clips. I see you, Darbo, in there.
I just appreciate you saying bud instead of butt. I think it's funny people don't know what that phrase actually
is.
Yes,
nip it in the bud. So Darbo in here just throwing absolutely wild allegations.
His wife's home. He's feeling back to normal again, so he's feeling feisty. That's what's going on.
Anyway.
Okay, so again, what have you, real just quick before we get into the football part, what have you heard from Michigan people you've talked to with the news that the NOA has been delivered?
Really a lot of nothing. And that's not to say that anyone is really concerned or worried. I said this on the boards today. I've been struggling to find anyone that has an ounce of concern about what's going on right now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not actively like digging for someone to be concerned so I can report on it. It's just that everyone that I've talked to through this whole thing and I've relied heavily upon for this whole thing keep, just do not have the level of concern that I don't think that should be out there for this thing. I mean, from the start, oh God. From the start, everything kind of I mean, I don't know what more we can possibly add.
No, there's nothing.
There's nothing new to add.
And also too, I posted earlier, fans and what Michigan cares about might be a little different right now, because I do think Michigan's probably going to get a stupid, massive fine. Yeah. And Michigan cares about that. I don't. Right. No vacated wins. Don't touch the championship. Probably some recruiting hours cut. Show causes for people that aren't here anymore. Cool. And you're probably going to get a huge fine. Michigan's not going to be excited about paying a huge fine. Yeah. Right. But
people are just really dumb and don't have proper reading comprehension, because when they see that Minter and Denard are actively working towards a resolution, it's for recruiting stuff.
Right.
It's for minor recruiting violations that they just want to get done over and done with.
Yeah.
And
it also, all that means actually is Michigan is fighting this.
Yeah, and it also
they're like,
shows
nah, we'll just get
that
this out of the
both
way.
of them kind of want a job in the NCAA if that ever were to happen again. I mean, I'm sure
At least have
Denard
a
would
door
probably
open.
like to get back into the NCAA once he gets everything in order. As for Minter, there's a spot, he's got a soft space to land if this NFL thing doesn't work out, because I'm sure anyone would like to have him in their program going forward. So look, I don't have anything to add. I think Pete Thamel doing what he did on ESPN when the draft came out and saying what he did, really, I wouldn't say set a precedence, but I mean, you've got
but the guy who has had firsthand knowledge of almost everything through this and saw the draft said their achievements are safe. There's not going to be vacated wins. There's not going to be a postseason ban.
Right. And then you've got the president of the NCAA coming out and saying Michigan won the championship fair and square. They've been
super compliant.
They've been compliant
Yeah.
about this whole thing, even though the NOA has a compliance thing in there. Look, Michigan's got 90 days to respond to this thing. As you said, NCAA's got a chance to respond. This will go in front of a committee of infractions. There's lawyers going to be involved. Look, it's just, man, we'll kind of have to wait. We'll kind of have to wait and see how this shakes out.
Yeah, somebody asked me about, I don't even remember the context of the Circuit City photo, and I was like, oh my God, I have one where you can't see it. I'm like holding a hard drive, and we were just like joking, and my buddy Matt there has a hammer, and I'm like, that's perfect. But yeah, there's Trevor working at Circuit City. Those were the days.
Yeah. And I've been there's a couple of comments on this Weiss.
Oh my God, the Weiss thing. Yeah.
I don't know why this is coming up again. I don't even know what the latest of the police investigation. That's a police issue.
Right.
We confirmed that on day one when this thing leaked out, that the Weiss stuff.
It's almost 20 years ago. Don't judge me.
The Weiss stuff is
the police
to do
at the time the news came out. The police said it has nothing to do with football. But you've got they want to make it something more than it is. I do think it's weird. It's dragged on. I think the whole thing is weird. I know other newspapers have been trying to get freedom of information stuff and been unable to, but just computer access crimes was specifically referencing him accessing Michigan accounts that he wasn't supposed to. I've heard a bunch of theories of what that means, whether it was students or medical history of players. Like, these rumors are out there, but oh my God, the gambling stuff.
Oh God.
You think that would be dragging on for this long? Are you insane? It's he hacked practice foot. The guy alleging that he hacked practice footage was literally fired for hacking practice footage. What world do we live in, dude? Just absolutely insane. So anyway, we'll continue to cover it, michigan.rivals.com. But nothing's changed in terms of nothing new is out there to make me feel different about my prediction, which has been fine. The more thing will be interesting. I do think that's the one case they have grounds to fight, though, because
talking about the texts.
Yeah, because he deleted them the day the news came out. The NCAA hadn't even talked to them yet. It's not like they said, "Hey, we need your texts," and then he deleted them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and you're looking at and you're also gonna have to factor in Sharon's response to that too. I mean, I'm looking forward to them coming out. I mean, you're not going to be puffing your chest out like that if you don't have grounds to stand on.
Well, we know there was nothing incriminating in them because there's nothing in the draft about it. The only thing with him was, you deleted these texts. Right. And they're going to try and make it a repeat violator thing. And I just think it's stupid.
Well, the big thing, too, is that they were also trying to get out in front of this stupid documentary that's coming out this week.
I don't even like calling it a documentary. It's not.
It's going to be there is an attempt to make the NCAA look bad. And maybe I don't know the exact contents of that documentary. I know bits and pieces of it. I do know that this is it's a documentary that shows that Connor is, the lone wolf in this thing, and that there's no connection. And the NOA supports that because it also stated that there was no connection. So I think, is that the NCAA trying to get out in front of this a little bit? But I don't know, whatever. I mean, I don't think the documentary really is going to change a lot of opinions
It's going to
regardless.
change zero opinions.
Yeah, right.
You either feel whatever side you're on right now, you're going to be like, see what he said, told you guys. And then the other side's going to be like, well, of course he didn't mean anything. Oh, he's a scumbag. It's not going to change anybody's minds.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, my opinion won't change when the documentary comes out. But maybe some people use it as a reference point for a good thing, but I don't expect it to do, much of a
reference.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah.
Yeah. This is Spinal Tap. We've seen other shows. The Swamp Kings thing didn't touch on anything anybody wanted to hear about, right? So, Brock, do you have anything real quick on the NOA, or you want to talk some?
I would just say it's unfortunate that this is all resurfacing right as the season's about to start. Yeah, I think a lot of Michigan fans and Michigan players would like to be able to focus on Fresno State and the beginning of the season, but now this has taken over once again. So it's unfortunate, the timing. A lot of people obviously don't think it's a coincidence, but there's still football. Regardless of what happens here, there's still going to be a football game on Saturday and a season to be played.
Yep.
I do think this is part of the punishment. Like that's the constant, drips before Big Ten media days, and the timing of Harbaugh being suspended while he was literally in the air on his way to Penn State. Like, it's all part of the punishment, So, but to your point, there is a game this week, and after what this team went through last year and the culture that already exists, I don't think this is going to bug them one bit. And I really liked the Penn State game came on after, was it the SMU game or the Florida State Georgia Tech game? I don't remember which game ended on Saturday, and then the next game that aired was last year's Michigan Penn State game. And I was like, well, I'm going to watch this. And I did forget, that pass rush, Penn State, first quarter, my God.
Yeah.
But one of the comments they talked about more was you think we had a chip on our shoulder before? It's a boulder now, right? Mm-hmm. And I just remember that kind of attitude, they fueled them in a lot of ways, So I'm not.
Michigan is going to try and the team is going to try and milk as much disrespect out of this thing as they possibly
if anything,
can.
I
mean, they're going to wring this thing out until it's dry, but they say that they don't listen to the outside noise, but in a sense they do. But yeah, I don't think this stuff is going to change a whole lot, All
right. So we're going to touch on that briefly, and we're 17 minutes in. So look, we've gone through the whole depth chart already on a previous pod. I don't think anything has really changed too much. There's going to be some points, but so everybody just take, 30 seconds or a minute to kind of talk on some bullet points here. Josh, any new intel you can share, but I'm going to continue to list Alex Orji or Davis Warren here. The things we know is Orji has had a really, really good camp and sounds like he's done enough to be the starter. A lot of folks have said throughout fall camp that has been the expectation. We also know that if Davis Warren, who has done enough to win this job as well, right? This isn't a situation of somebody winning by default. Both of them have done really well. If Warren were to be considered the starter, Orji is still going to play, right? That's something we've known for a while because of how they rank him. And then, if Orji's the starter, Warren's probably the backup, or there's some other version of that. Tuttle's been dealing with some things throughout camp that's kind of taken him out of the deal. And Jaden Davis has had a strong camp, but the plan to redshirt does not appear to be changing. So he'll obviously get some snaps, hopefully this year, redshirt, and then play next year. But that being said, I feel like there's two strategies at play here. And it's either get Orji as many snaps as you possibly can in this week one game, or it's play both quarterbacks, whether that's part of a continued competition or just screwing with Texas to give them something confusing to game plan for.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also a little bit of both. I think both things can be true. I don't think it has to be either or. I don't think not playing two quarterbacks was ever truly out of the discussion. I think there was always going to be a situation where they could realistically play two quarterbacks in this game against Fresno State. I mean, let's be honest, Michigan is the better program than Fresno State, so they should be able to get out to a pretty sizable lead here to the point
I'm talking about literally series to series or even during series.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for us to sit here and kind of prognosticate and say, oh yeah, Orji's going to play the first series and then
Right.
Davis Warren comes out and does 3 series or whatever. It's easy for anyone to kind of sit there and say that, but the way the game changes and the way nothing ever goes as planned most of the time in the game of football from drive to drive changes so much. So I think there's some level of, both guys are going to see the field. I'm now kind of convincing myself that that's going to happen. I don't think it's just going to be, we're going to ride with Orgy, however long it goes, and then they decide to bring the backups in or whatever. But I just think it all comes down to game plan and kind of the flow of the game as well. Because I think if you're, let's say Alex Orgy is the snap one starter and he's playing really well and he's in a rhythm and he's, the offense is in a rhythm. Do you upset that rhythm by putting in Davis Warren just to see what you have, or would you rather stick with your guy? And I think that's kind of what Kirk Campbell has kind of brought up in the past, that, you want to have a guy and you want to be strong in your convictions in terms of who you pick. So, man, it's down to it. I'm not like discrediting Davis Warren either. I think he's done enough to start. Absolutely. But again, I think it just comes down to feel. And I think messing with Texas I think there is some level of gamesmanship there. I'm not completely sold that they have a guy that they're ready to say that he's the starter. Let me say this. I'd be pleasantly surprised if Sharon gets up to the podium on Monday and says, so-and-so is our guy. I would be stunned. He'd be like, oh, we'll see. We've got all week to talk about it. I think they have an idea. I don't think they're sitting there absolutely having no idea who they're going to start. But I do still think that situation, there's a little bit of fluidity with that situation in terms of who they're going to play. So, long story short, it might not matter who starts on Saturday because you could see both. And, it could be a JJ Cade situation where one guy just completely outplays the other, and it's very, very obvious who should start. So, do I think there is some gamesmanship that could happen to their detriment? Of course, because I think you'd like to see one guy and kind of stick it out if he's, having control of the offense. So, if there's a scenario to play out where both guys can see the field to see what you have, go for it. They've got, Fresno State week 1 and Texas week 2, but, Arkansas State could be another opportunity to kind of see what you got. But, to definitively say like Alex Orgy should be the starter. The information that's out there suggests that he should be, but, there could be some sort of smoke screen coming from Michigan too, to really kind of, I guess gamesmanship this thing heading into week 1.
I would say that most people are under the impression that Alex Orgy is going to get the start on Saturday based on everything we've heard out of fall camp. He seems to be the leader, and it seems like we've talked about all offseason. He's kind of the guy that they've wanted to win this job, and I do think he'll be out there taking the first snap on Saturday. And what I'm looking for is a few things. I'm looking for what Kirk Campbell talked about on the Big Ten fall camp preview that they aired on the Big Ten Network on Tuesday. He talked about leadership. He talked about, moving the ball down the field, giving the defense time to catch their breath, and then scoring points. And so I'm looking to see that from Alex Orgy. In a game like this against Fresno State, a non-conference game, I don't know if you'll be able to immediately discern whether or not Alex Orgy has that leadership intangible that JJ McCarthy had, but you will be able to immediately see whether he can move the ball down the field and get the offense scoring points. And I'm looking to see him throw the ball. He's got one career pass attempt. Yeah. And I think going.
Well, he also has a perfect QB rating because it was a completion. So
you're right. But he needs to throw the ball more. And if they go in there and have him splitting time with Davis Warren, giving Texas something to think about, maybe that's a good strategy. But I think if they know Orgy's the guy, they need to get him as many attempts as possible before before Texas goes to Ann Arbor.
I think you either trust him or you don't. And Kirk's talked about no second guessing and things like that. If you do trust him and you think he has this Milrow potential ceiling, then he needs as many reps as possible. That's my opinion. I like Davis Ward a lot. I think his story and what he's overcome to even be talked about in this competition is beyond admirable. It's impressive, whatever. And I think Michigan would be really good if he was the quarterback. But I think you just got to pick one, my opinion. But I mean, I get that, they got something else to plan for. But then also too, like, okay, are you going to run something where when Orgy's out there, they know what's coming?
Yeah.
Right. Like I that's my thing. And yeah, I'm with you, Brock. I want to see him throwing the ball, and I want to see him, hitting guys in stride on crossing routes. Are they going to do just the short yarded stuff? Are they going to use play action and look deep? Are we going to see a guy like a Moran Walker get a shot on a deep pass? How Loveland's getting used, etc. So obviously the running game is going to be a big factor. So Orgy, if he's out there, how much he's actually allowed to carry it, what the RPO looks like. I don't think there's any question whatsoever about Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings leading the way. Max Bredesen continuing to be that fullback H-back role, potentially having a bigger role in the passing game. And RB3-4 seems to be it's Benjamin Hall and Jordan Marshall. And these two guys, the idea of iron sharpens iron. Here you are, right? Benjamin Hall had a chance at a really good season last year, put together a good spring and fall, and then had turf toe on both feet, which sounds awful. He's back. He's healthy. He's looking really good and strong. And I just think he's a different style back, and that I think Hall is much more like a Mullings. He's got a little bit better cuts, right? He can do some of the lateral moves, and I think Marshall's more all-around guy. So it'll be interesting to see how they're used. Brock, you've talked about this a bunch. What does that role actually look like in terms of how the carries are shared, especially game one, right? Yeah. Like, are we going to see somebody get an opportunity to be a bell cow, or is this going to be a lot of four-way rotation?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question right there. I don't think they need to. Maybe against Texas, you want to go with your more reliable guys in certain situations. But week one, I think there's enough to tote the rock for everyone. You can still, even a guy like Jordan Marshall, if you're not 100% sure, you're going to get him plenty of snaps this year, which, if you listen to the fall camp hype, I mean, there's definitely a scenario where he could. You've got that 4-game window where you can still play him and preserve a red shirt. So, we'll kind of see how that factors in. But yeah, I mean, knowing that you have your top 2 guys locked in, and having the rest kind of not necessarily, I think fighting for scraps is probably the wrong word to use here, but I think there is a legitimate, some legitimate carries to be had, underneath Donovan and Kalel. But, you'd like to see, Benjamin Hall get some meaningful snaps and take advantage of it. Even Jordan Marshall too. I think, if you feel comfortable enough burning that red shirt, you must be pretty darn impressive. So, yeah, I think having that 4-game window of even a tryout kind of type of situation, just to kind of to see if you've got something there, will be interesting. But, I'm kind of looking at how the depth even behind Hall and Marshall look, because you had Cole Cabana kind of being mentioned a couple of times as someone who's changed his body a little bit and is starting to figure it out. I don't know how that's going to equate to carries or even what his role looks like. But, if you've got a guy, Cabana, if he's figuring it out, that's also a good thing down the road. So I really think the halfway point of the season is going to be a really important inflection point in terms of where the direction of this running back group is headed. If you've got Marshall breaking out, then, things, you're going to be in pretty good hands here moving forward beyond this year. But yeah, I mean, Edwards, Mullings, you got to see those 2 guys be the bell cows, and really carry the load early on, especially if you're figuring out the pass game for sure.
Michigan probably knows what it has in Edwards and Mullings. You've got two seniors and one captain and one alternate captain, right? So I'm looking to see who's we've talked about it a lot this offseason, but who's going to be that RB3? Who's going to get the first carry behind those two? And I want to see Benjamin Hall and Jordan Marshall go out there and compete. I want to see what they have against a Fresno State team that Michigan should beat pretty handily. I want to see what they can do. We know what Donovan Edwards can do. We've seen Khalil Mullings play, right? So I'm looking at depth more at running back, especially if Michigan gets ahead by quite a bit, and then Edwards and Mullings will probably be seeing the bench more than they will be seeing the field.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm going to get the answers I want from this first game, but I want to know if like Edwards is the go-to RB1 and Mullings is more of a spell, or if Mullings is used more situationally, whether it's, first downs or, short yardage, goal line, stuff like that. Because that's kind of been a theory that's out there. And then, I'm with you. I want to see as much Hall and Marshall as possible. I was high on Hall last year, and I Shadyville said he'll probably start as RB3 and Marshall will play him by midseason. That used to be a hot take. It's not so much anymore.
Right.
And that just says a lot about Marshall. Hall's really good, but like when I felt weird throwing out Corum comparisons in the past, whether it's talking about his leadership or some of the cuts he makes on the field. When Sharon Moore says it, though, like they obviously think highly of this kid. So, but yeah, I think we'll see a lot of the run game, and like I said, how Orgy plays into it. I don't know that wide receiver has changed one bit since the start of fall, to be honest. Tyler Morris, Samaj Morgan, those are your top two. Morris is pegged in that Roman Wilson, Ronnie Bell role. Samaj will continue to activate from the slot and go outside more likely this year. Fred Moore's the guy they expect to take a leap in that X role more outside. And then the guys that are going to get a shot to come in on deep targets, and Morian Walker, Kendrick Bell has gotten a lot of talk this fall camp as well. CJ Charleston, I think, is probably in that wide receiver 4, maybe 3 conversation with Moore, because he can do a lot of the Z stuff, a lot of the slot stuff. I think he'll be really good for a guy like Orgy in terms of being available in the flat, short routes. And then surprisingly, because neither one was an early enrollee, both freshmen, Marion Stewart and Channing Goodwin, have gotten decent shout outs through fall camp as well. And obviously, even with a redshirt rule, they can still get on the field 4 times. So maybe one of them becomes a factor in special teams and loses a red shirt, but it sounds like they're going to get on the field a little bit this year. But this group is led by Morris and Morgan and Moore, the Moes. What combination of, Moore, and then the experience of Charleston. And then can they find a breakout? Can Morian Walker become that deep guy they've been looking for years?
Yeah, I think that's the big key. If they can find a breakout guy not named Fred, Tyler, or Samaj, I think that's a best case scenario for them, because
it doesn't start with Mo.
Yeah. It doesn't have Mo in their last names. I think they'll be in a really good spot. Channing Goodwin is a bit of a surprise to me, in a good way, because I wasn't really expecting him to kind of come in and be a guy that could contribute right away. I don't know if he's going to be, a guy that sees a significant amount of offensive snaps. It sounds like, from the way Sharon kind of said it during his press conference, is kind of like they're just going to find a role for Channing somehow, which probably typically ends up, being on special teams, which is equally as important if you're talking about roles. So that's, having Channing Goodwin even had players kind of shout him out too. So that's also a very good sign. But I think, this group is going to go as far as Tyler Morris can take them, honestly. The way that he's been talked about as someone that, is being relied upon as a leader, someone that, multiple people have said that he's still being slept on and has had a great camp and has the most reliable hands out of the whole group. You expect him to be that guy for at least attempt to be the guy for Michigan. So I do think that this group will go as far as Tyler Morris takes them. And that's not obviously counting guys like, Colson Loveland and Marlon Klein as well. So yeah, well, anyone else in that group that can step up and and have a role is very good news for a group of largely unknown talent in the receiver group.
For me, this is the exact opposite of what I talked about with the running backs. I said for the running backs, I'd like to see the depth guys, the running back 3s and running back 4s get on the field. But for Michigan here at receiver, you'd like to see the presumed starters get out there and show what they can do. We've seen a little bit from Samaj Morgan last year, seen a little bit from Tyler Morris, not a whole lot from Fred Moore, right? We've talked all off season. This is a very unproven wide receiver room. So I want to see the wide receivers get out there and show what they can do. Have Alex Orji throwing them the ball, get them out in space, get them going and scoring points. But I'd like to see obviously depth guys rise up, and I'm looking forward to seeing that on Saturday. But before you can get depth guys stepping up, you got to get the starters where they need to be, and I think that's going to be step one for Michigan on Saturday.
I think I agree with that. I've talked all offseason about Samaj being incredible. I mean, it's the speed and space thing. I know it's annoying, but look, yards after catch, him and Morris were actually the top 2 on the team last year. Yeah. Not a lot of receptions, but if they actually let Morgan get down the field a little bit more, I mean, he did have that really nice back shoulder touchdown catch. But yeah, I want to see those guys as the top receivers getting a bunch of snaps. Are they able to block in the run game as well? Right. That's going to be a big piece.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Trevor, because I wanted to point out this comment by Shadyville. I hope this receiver group can be counted on the block. They can be a difference in Donovan breaking a long one. I agree. And what gives me confidence that they will is the last time we spoke to Samaj Morgan was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he went on this like 5-minute, I don't want to call it a rant, but like a 5-minute answer.
Diatribe.
Yeah, there you go. Diatribe. About how he wants to be a complete receiver, and he stressed blocking about like 4 times in this block of text that he had coming out of just one answer. So they are stressing. I mean, Ron Bellamy's stressing no block, no rock, and that's how it's always been at Michigan. If you don't block, you're not going to get the ball. So that kind of gives me confidence that they're gonna rely on that. And again, like Sharon Moore is your head coach, the philosophy is always going to be there to be physical. And if you're not going to be physical as a receiver, you're not going to play, and you're not going to go out there and you're not going to block. So I definitely think that they're not going to stray away from getting their hats on people and being aggressive in that regard. So I have confidence there. I'm definitely not concerned. Thesaurus boy.
Thank you.
Yeah, way to pull that one out.
Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of 2 wide receiver sets, a lot of Morris and Morgan, because I think we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel because of this tight end group. When you're talking about the blocking, Colston Loveland is going to be the 3rd receiver. Wide receiver 1 potentially in terms of receiving stats, but I think he's going to be split out wide or even in the slot a lot this year. There's nothing to add. No one's going to say anything, right? New about how good Colston Loveland is. Marlon Klein's hype has continued from spring through summer into fall. They really like him as inline blocking and also as a receiver. I believe it was Loveland that said he's more athletic than he is. Right? Like the guy's a freak. I think he's going to take that AJ Barner role to another level. That has nothing to do with AJ Barner, by the way. I just think the way that he was used. Again, talked about Max Bredesen and his role. I think the story's here, and we've already kind of talked about this, but the sophomores, Zach Marshall and Deacon Tonielli, have both had really good camps and kind of given themselves a little bit of gap between the freshmen, Prieskorn and Hansen, who are both going to be really, really good and can see the field this year a little bit. But if you were looking for either one of them to get into the 2 deep right away, it sounds like the sophomores have carved out a role. And Jalen Hoffman, walk on. This is a guy that he's probably the 3rd best pass catching tight end on this roster right now. Yeah. He can line up in line outside. They like him kind of in the future, taking over for Bredesen at that H-back role. But this is a loaded and deep group, led by arguably the best tight end in the country.
Yeah, and it's only going to get deeper. The 25 class that are recruiting right now is good tight ends in it. So, yep, it's only going to get better. But yeah, look, I mean, what more can you say about Colson Loveland? The best tight end in the game right now.
Doesn't get those buzz cuts at great clips, that's for sure.
No, does not.
Nice fade.
Marlon Klein, he's kind of an interesting guy because the way it was kind of explained to me is he's not quite ready to be that AJ Barner role yet. But I don't think he necessarily has to be that AJ Barner.
No, I think it's going to be different.
Yeah, I think he's obviously more athletic, first of all. But, I think he can be an asset in the run game and in the pass game, obviously in the pass game, but the run game too. I think you have to kind of see him take a few more reps to be more confident in his run blocking ability. But yeah, I mean, he's absolutely going to be a contributor this year. How much and what his impact will be kind of remains to be seen here, but especially when you're lining up with Colston. But, I'm excited to see Max Bredesen, to see what he can do. I think he can be more than just a guy that just knocks people on their asses every play. I think he's capable.
I'm good with him doing that though.
Yeah, I mean, that's his bread and butter, and that's perfectly fine. But I think he's very capable of contributing to a certain degree. He could be that, that hammering panda Khalid Hill type of guy that picks up the scrappy, finishes with like 9 touchdowns, all of them on 2 yards. But it's there's definitely there's a scenario there where you can kind of see multiple guys at tight end contribute. But yeah, I mean, again, it's led by Colson Loveland, and it shouldn't start and stop there, but it could, and that's totally fine. They'd be totally fine with that.
As long as Michigan has serviceable quarterback play, I feel like this offense will go as far as Colson Loveland will take it. Right, a lot of it depends on the quarterback play, but Colson Loveland, I think a lot of people are predicting him to lead the team in receiving this year as a junior. You guys have said it, he's the best tight end in the country, and we've seen him grow over the last 2 years. So, if Michigan's at least good at quarterback, I'd expect a big year from Colson Loveland, and that just takes the offense to a whole new level. So, not much more to say than that. He's gonna show people what he's about this year.
We're doing the thing I said I didn't want to do, and turning this into depth chart year outlook. So, for this game for Fresno, I want Loveland to have a huge game. Like, I want him to come out 7-8 receptions, over 100 yards, a touchdown or two. Like, I want him to have a huge game because I think that's going to be a very good thing for Alex Orji as well, to see that weapon. And then I want to see Klein be used, like I said, beyond the AJ Barner role, to Josh's point as well. And then, like fall camp hype translate. I want to see Jalen Hoffman get on the field. I want to see Max Bredesen get used in the passing game. Week 1, give me that, right? I don't know how to do this O-line without it being crazy. This is trying to think of, like, in terms of fall. Again, not a lot of changes here. I think we're going to see some of this stuff bleed into the season. Miles Hinton is starting at left tackle. Josh Preeb is starting at left guard. And Giovanni El Hadi is starting at right guard. We know that. These are the guys with arguably the most experience. Your 2 guys with starter experience. Not shocked by that at all, right? The center battle, one kind of came out of nowhere. We thought Crippen was going to be the guy there. Raheem Anderson started to push him. Crippen's been limited at times. Anderson arguably has led that battle, could lead that battle. I think we could see both those dudes play at the start of the season. Moore's kind of suggested that. Same thing at right tackle. I don't have his name listed here, but that might be a 3-way battle with Evan Link as well. So Andrew Gentry was a guy I've kind of been high on just because, look, former top 100 recruit, feel like he might have a high ceiling. Jeff Percy looked really good in the action he had as a starter in 22. Same thing. I think we could see those guys rotate a little bit. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I've kind of talked about, I would really love to know the starting 5 and give the ones a chance to roll. So I guess for Fresno State, what I'd like to see is Hinton show he can be that elite left tackle that they've basically promised him this gig since the spring. Show it. I want to see whoever's at center. That, we've been very blessed with the 2 guards and center play we've had for the last 2 seasons in Ann Arbor. Want to see that interior dominate. There are a couple good defensive tackles on Fresno's team, so want to see them hold up well. And then, right tackle. The biggest benefit we've been talking about all year is it feels like this offensive line could upgrade in a way because you're going to have true tackles on the outside instead of 4 guards. So I want to see good true tackle play, and I want to see that interior look like it has for the last couple of years. Maybe that's a lot to ask for out of week 1, but this is a group I probably have the most concern about. It's 5 new starters.
Yeah, right. Right. And I mean, you can say all you want about how much experience that they have, but I mean, 5 new starters across the board is, it takes some time to kind of get that buffer period going where, it'll take some time. I'm not expecting them to just come out and be flat awful, but it'll take some time to gel and get everything to where they want to be. I mean, that's just how football goes. I mean, you can't just expect coming out of camp where you're facing the same opponent every day for a month to come out and then, when it's go time to flip the switch. But I mean, right now, as of a couple of days ago, it kind of really felt like Raheem Anderson is going to win that starting role. And, good for him. I mean, I think the staff would be happy with either Raheem or Greg Crippen being the starter. I don't think they were, at least not disappointed. Crippen had been nicked up a little bit and kind of missed some time. So maybe that did help Raheem Anderson to a certain extent, but I mean, you got to play, you can't, and if whoever wins that job permanently has earned that job. Don't get me wrong. It's not just handed to them. But the right tackle position is interesting because Evan Link absolutely is making a case for himself with there too. It wasn't too long ago where I was told that Percy might be leading that job over Gentry, but that still feels like there's some fluidity and maybe a little bit of smokescreen in terms of, who is going to get that start. But, it wouldn't at all shock me to see Link be the guy. I mean, he's kind of quickly really ascended fast. If he's not the right tackle, he's going to see the field. There is a role for him. I know he's kind of included in some jumbo packages. I mean,
I was going to say, have we heard, is there a go-to for the jumbo lineman at this point?
I know that Link is kind of involved in that. It's probably going to lean maybe more towards a Foey because he's the guard.
Right.
But I think there's absolutely a role for they're going to play multiple linemen. They just do that. They have 9 or 10 guys that now that are capable of doing that. And that's kind of what they achieved, what they set out to do during fall camp is to find guys that they can rely on. So that's kind of what, it's kind of lining up with what we expected. There's going to be multiple guys involved. And there's definitely, there's definitely a scenario where you could kind of see a surprise on the offensive line in terms of who starts, against Fresno State. So we'll kind of see. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing if Link comes in and is named the starter. I don't think that's bad at all. I think that kid is going to be very good. So if it's quicker, and he takes the job, then obviously I don't think he's letting that go. But again, I just think it just kind of goes back to the discussion that we've had since spring is that, this line might not be this line might not be experienced, but they have the talent and depth to kind of rotate a little bit and not necessarily be worried about, taking depth hits, whether that would be with injury or what have you. So there's a lot to like there.
Listen, Michigan's identity the last 3 seasons has been running the football. And with Sherrone Moore, it's not going to change. Everyone knows that's his identity as a coach. And so on Saturday, I'm looking to see Michigan run the ball. I know I also said I want to see Orgy throw the ball and the receivers catch the ball, but I want to see how Michigan can move the ball on the ground because that's the identity of the team. And if the identity of the team is subpar or not as good as it has been in recent years, then you're going to be looking at a Michigan team that's not as good as the teams of the past have been. So I want to see success in the ground game for Michigan with the offensive line. It doesn't matter who's starting. Michigan has the pieces and the talent, like Josh said, to be able to run the football, and that's something that they should showcase on Saturday.
Yeah, I was a little more biased to who starts last year. And this year, I don't really think I care that much. I feel really good about who we know who is starting. So, yeah, I'm with you. I want to see them move people and run the ball well and look like that's going to be a strength again. See some improved pass pro, and especially what kind of pockets Orgy has and what he deals with when they're there as well. Right?
Shadyville brings up a really good question here. With those projected starters, does the offensive line have a higher ceiling but lower floor? I say yes.
Higher ceiling than what, though?
Higher ceiling than what they had previously. I say yes, because you've actually got guys in their natural positions.
Yes, that's fair.
So I think that fact alone, say, yeah, they have a higher ceiling, but the floor is probably lower, because I don't know if they've got a Zinter in there. That's
what I was going to say. That's what always gives me pause. I like El Hadi a lot, and I think he's going to be really good. Yeah. Trying to match Zinter is an unfair request.
Right, exactly.
You know, and Keegan, as good as Keegan was too, I think Preeb will do really well. You know, and whoever plays at center isn't going to be Olu or Nugent, probably, right? If they are, then great.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Yeah,
this is a very good thing.
It'd be an amazing thing. So,
that's fair. I would say yes.
Yeah, because if they struggle and don't click, then that's definitely a lower floor than what they had.
And let's put it this way: even if there is a surprise guy that snuck in and be a starter, there's no guy that I could see on this roster, or excuse me, in these battles, where if they win the job, I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh man, this is a disaster." Like they have like guys who have earned those jobs. So, and you've got guys in more natural positions than they were.
Well, yeah, and to Antoine's point, yeah, these are new starters, but like the youngest dude is 22.
Yeah, like, grown men in there.
Yeah,
but the thing is too is that they might have had snaps, but they haven't had snaps together, which is kind of the big argument of kind of trying to build that chemistry, which you might see a little bit of lag, in the early part of the season, because they haven't really all played together. They've been together through camp, but as I said, it's not the same as going against other people. So there'll probably be a little bit of a lag period where, some people might freak out that the running game isn't as effective as it should be, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. It takes good things take time.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add on the offensive line.
That's
get
to
the defense.
I would say we're already at an hour almost already. We still have the defensive preview going into week 1. So let's see what we can do here. Okay. This is another group early on in fall camp. Anoeta moving in to be more of the defensive tackle because he was over 300 pounds was kind of the news. Him having a good fall camp is not a surprise. Rayshon Benny being healthy from the start of camp, staying healthy throughout fall camp. Good news there. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, what do you want to say, right? Week 1, I want to see those dudes absolutely dominate a lesser opponent, but I do want to see the depth behind them too, right? When they're out there, I want to see them be dominant, but Ike has gotten a ton of hype. I want to see it. Trey Pierce, because Josh Henschke, the president of the Trey Pierce fan club, has been telling me this dude's going to be a stud. I want to see it, and I'm very excited for Anoeta. I think he has a chance to be potentially not take over Benny, but like, in terms of who we think of as like that third defensive tackle, maybe what Jenkins did last year. Etta's ceiling is just sky high for me. So hoping to see a lot of him on Saturday as well.
Yeah. I mean, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brock. You take over. You take over. Brock's got this.
All right. Well, I was just going to say on the first defensive drive that Michigan has when Fresno State has the ball, I'm looking for a combination of a combination of tackles for loss and sacks to equal 3. 3, either
on the first drive.
Yeah.
You want 3 negative plays on the first drive.
That's right. I want that level of dominance from Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, and then Fresno State punts the ball away.
I will say, when you make predictions that I feel are oddly specific and maybe like, you're usually right. The Will Johnson 2 interceptions in the Big Ten championship game, I will remember forever.
But yeah, I mean, that's the level of dominance that fans should expect from this group, especially up top, like we talked about all off season long. So just dominate. That's simply what Michigan should do against Fresno State.
Based on my college football 25 game, though, I think that will happen.
I get so many picks with Will Johnson in that game. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
It's insane. I don't even try. It just happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really have much to add on the defensive line. I mean, everything is going the way we thought it would.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily want to see 3 negative plays on the first drive, but I mean
I do. That'd be amazing. Yeah.
I mean, if that's a 3 and out on the first drive, then that's great, But yeah, you just kind of want to see, you want to see the depth kind of build out there, and you do want to see them get time too. I think, having Mason and Grant play 60 snaps is important because they haven't hit that level yet, which is crazy to think. But you also want to see that depth, see some time, like TJ Guy, obviously, and Inoetta and all those guys. You want to see them get some snaps and significant snaps. But I mean, nothing really much to add. I mean, this is probably going to be one of Michigan's biggest strengths on defense.
It would be interesting to see if Graham and Grant play like 40 or more snaps in the first game.
Yeah, obviously we do a snap count after every game, so that we'll be on top of that on Sundays for sure.
James, I'll get into a little bit more on the Fresno State stuff at the end when we give our preview. But this is definitely a pass heavy team. They got some bruisers at running back, but they have struggled to run the ball passing. This is going to be a big part of it, which kind of leads into the edge group. I want to see pressure and I want to see sacks. We've been talking about this defensive line. I think Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are going to get to the quarterback, but we need to see Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart as the leaders get after the quarterback. Both those guys have been hyped a ton in fall camp. We've gone back and forth. Each of us picked who we think could be the guy. I think either one could be a double-digit sack guy. The concern here has obviously been depth developing. TJ Guy on the weak side, not a shock. He's been getting hyped. Stromore mentioned him today in the Inside Michigan Football episode. He's kind of the first guy off the bench, if you will, in that role. Cam Brandt, him and Etta, I don't want to say switched roles because Brandt played outside all of last year too, but he actually lost weight coming into fall camp. He's probably going to have first dibs at that strong side position along with another freshman, Dominic Nichols. Him, Marshall, and then Cole Sullivan, who we'll get to, seem to be the 3 freshmen with the best chances to play. Whether we see this be a 4-man rotation or a lot on the top 2 will be interesting as well. And then, I hope it's enough of a blowout that we can see some of the other guys we've heard about throughout camp. I'm not even going to try it. Chibi
and Wuna?
Yep, thank you. I don't know what it is when I'm looking at it. I can't do it. It's not like I'm dyslexic, but it's crazy.
2 weeks ago, shout out Plymouth, Michigan.
Yeah, no, I remember, but I look at it and my brain just it's crazy. Breon Ishmael has been somebody I'm excited to see since he showed up 50 pounds heavier afterwards. He could be linebacker edge. Oh my God. Somebody else, Shadyville mentioned Kumba. Yeah. Americ Kumba.
Yeah.
We've talked about him too. He's ahead of schedule. We knew he was going to be a project coming over from France, but he could get out of the field. There's a lot of names here, not a lot of experience.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's par for the course for Michigan this year. A lot of names, not a lot of experience, but good thing the experience thing will take care of itself here in a couple of days. So that's a good thing. But I know I apologies for not remembering who asked, but someone asked in the comments who we kind of expected freshman wise to see a lot of snaps other than Marshall.
That was Brett. He doesn't count.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I do think
he's a very knowledgeable Illinois fan.
Okay. Well, he's still welcome here.
He is. He's good people.
Yeah, Dominic Nichols is definitely one of those guys that I think is going to see a lot of snaps eventually this year. Maybe early, we'll see, but he's been hyped up a lot as looking really good in fall camp. Quite like the interior of the defensive line. I mean, I don't really have much to add here except Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart have been dominant through camp, and you just hope to kind of see that translate to week 1 and beyond. Other than that, Again, like the interior, you just want to see them build depth, and you want to see plenty of guys get rotation there. And I think the more rotation they have, obviously, the better that bodes for Michigan long term, especially if it can be effective. So, yeah, again, I mean, you just kind of want it, as you said, Trevor, you want to see pressure and you want to see sacks, and ultimately that's kind of the two big things that, defensive linemen are judged on. Can you get pressure? Can you get sacks, or can you get TFLs? And we'll see. I mean, only a few more days left until we can kind of get that early questions answered. So, can't wait.
Aside from 3 negative plays and a 3 and out on the first drive of the game, I'm looking to see
here we go.
what Michigan does with snap counts here. I mean, this goes for Graham and Grant too. Texas is coming up in just 13 days from right now. And obviously these guys are probably as fresh as they're going to be all season, coming off of a long 8-month off season. But you want them to be fresh for one of the 3 biggest games on the schedule, right? And you don't want these guys to have to go out there, 2 of your most dominant players on the interior, and then Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart on the outside. You don't want them to go out there and play 60 snaps like Kenneth Grant has talked about, because you need them for Texas. You need to keep them fresh. And so that's what I'm looking to see. I think, I don't know, if 30 to 35 is a good number for all of them, depending on how the game is going, obviously. But
right.
you don't want to overwork those guys with one of the biggest games of the season coming up next week.
Yeah, and Fresno's a team that, like I said, relies on the passing game, was very, very good on third down last year, had some explosive plays. That's stuff where this defense has thrived in the past, right? So I want to see them get after the quarterback on third down. I want to see them not give up any big plays. I think that's going to start with the guys up front. And yeah, if it's Fresno and it's early, but if it can look like the gap between Stewart and Guy isn't as significant, I mean, even if the gap's there because Stewart's so high, that's fine. But as long as there's not a massive drop-off and Guy can come in and do the job, right? He's been hyped up for a couple of years. Let's see it, right? And whether it's Brandt or Nichols and their hype they've been getting. Again, just the fall translating to the field. Wink, I still love the comment, Wink kind of laughing, like, you rotated these guys, talking about Moore and Stewart. But remember, that last play of the game in the Rose Bowl, Moore, Stewart, Graham, and Grant were all out there, but also had been rotated throughout the game, and they were fresh in an overtime. It's a big piece of why they were successful, right? This is another category. I don't know that there's really anything new here. Jayshon Barham is some sort of legendary wizard, maybe not human, based on the hype that he's been getting this fall. I've got him listed as Mike, Ernest Hausman listed as Will. I think you could see those roles change up quite a bit. Yeah, Warhammer. That's so good. Yeah, those who missed it, the spelling typo, changed it to Warhammer. So good. I think this one's obvious. Barham hype translate and be the absolute beast we expect. And Jimmy Rolder and or Jaden Hood look good enough to be there as backups and be a part of rotations. And the step Hausman takes as well. But yeah, for me, it's again, just in terms of the hype machine guys, we've talked about Loveland and some other dudes. Barham, for me, I want to see that guy look like he might be the best player on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to the hype, I mean, this guy is like otherworldly in camp.
Yeah.
So hopefully that translates to the field, and I think it will. Obviously, Warhammer is that's a big nickname. It's a big nickname you got to live up to, that we coined him and no one else did. So it's you got to live up to the MMBR nicknames you give her. You're a bust. But no, I'm just kidding. But I think my hot take here for this group is that Cole Sullivan by midseason will take the majority of snaps at linebacker. I think that's kind of my hot-ish take. Or maybe it's not hot at all. I don't know. But, well, I mean, we'll find out. But
too hot.
We'll see. But, I again, the depth is, I don't want to say concerning, but I think that's the biggest question mark they have on defense right now is the depth behind Barham and Hausman. However, it's Barham and Hausman. So, like, what really, I mean, how often are those guys going to be rotated out. I don't know. But I mean, if you got a guy like Cole Sullivan who's really trying to, by all accounts, is making a name for himself, I mean, almost by default, you have to play him. I don't know how that kind of, I don't know how that impacts things. But, you know, the good thing, I guess it's good and bad. The good thing, you have Jay-Sean Barham and Ernest Hausman as your starters. The bad thing is you don't know what the depth behind them really is. But the good thing is you've got Barham and Hausman. So, you know, we'll kind of see how the depth behind it works out. I don't know how much rotation they're going to be having there. And I don't know if they really need to rotate him that much. I mean, we'll ultimately find out. But those two guys, Barham and Hausman, they're going to get involved early and often for sure.
Yeah, my eyes are going to be on number 1 in blue when Michigan is on defense for most of the day on Saturday. I want to see Jay-Sean Barham go out there and hit people hard. That's, I mean, you could talk about the depth up and down, but the way this guy's been talked about in camp and throughout the last few months is absurd. So I'm going to be locked in on Jay-Sean Barham on Saturday.
Yeah, good point, though, to Josh with Sullivan. It'd be just like Nichols and some of the other guys we've mentioned, him playing early against Fresno and kind of backing up some of his hype would be a pleasant thing. But yeah, it's all about Barham for me. I want to see that dude be. Sorry, why is this working? There we go. I want to see him be Devin Bush, but stronger, because that's what somebody has said, and that's absurd to me. So that needs to be a reality. Corner. Again, a lot of the, I don't know, that the unknown of this was taken away pretty early in camp. Jair Hill looks like he's going to be CB2. I do think other guys are going to play, but he's been anointed there. Zeke Berry seems to have taken a hold of that nickel role. Same thing. I think Jaden McBurrows is going to play nickel, probably on the outside as corner. We've heard guys like Brandon Hillman could factor in there as well. We're going to see some rotation with the safeties. The two transfers, Amir Hall and Ricky Johnson, have been really, really good, bringing experience into that room. And you still have Michigan's veterans as well with Keyshawn Harris and Miles Pollard. But this is Will Johnson, Jair Hill, and Zeke Berry. For me, I think it's pretty obvious. I want to see this. I mean, you're replacing Josh Wallace, who was better than I think most expected, and a guy that might be on a lot of people's Michigan Mount Rushmore at this point with Mikey Sainer still. Yeah. Not saying Zeke Berry is going to do that, but what this secondary looks like without those guys, I'm excited to see it. Some people have already brought it up, like, are they going to pick on Jair Hill a ton? We talked about this with our interception predictions as well. If they do pick on him a ton, is he ready for the moment? Is Hill going to step up and look like everything he's been hyped up to be? Sugar.
I say yes for Jair. I think he's going to be I think he's going to have a great year. I mean, there's a reason why he was basically anointed the starter heading into camp and hasn't relented that role even a little bit.
Well said.
I think that speaks a lot to Jair. Zeke too. I mean, you can say the exact same thing for Zeke. Basically anointed. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say Jair was anointed in the spring, but Zeke certainly was anointed in the spring.
Yeah.
And they've both kind of, I mean, Jair was basically CB2 at the end of spring, and Zeke was just flatlined the whole way and just has taken it since spring and hasn't relented. So, you know, I think that speaks a lot to both guys. And I think that's going to bode very well for the season, but yeah, the good thing, you know, Amir Hall and Ricky Johnson, there's definitely going to be rotation there. You know, I think Amir Hall is probably the closest thing you have to a Josh Wallace on this roster. And a year ago, we were basically asking, you know, if you could get anything out of Josh Wallace, then you're having a very good thing. Now we're saying, well, who could be the next Josh Wallace?
That's so funny.
It's funny how that stuff works. But yeah, I mean, as Borge Warner says, is here sound tackling. I mean, yeah, as long as these guys can tackle and defend, I think they'll be just fine. And I think Jair Hill is going to have a really good year. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to relate to picks or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, yeah, you obviously don't have to worry about Will, so it's kind of everyone else behind them, and there's a ton of promise with Zeke and Jair, and there's going to be guys that see the field too. So Yeah, I mean, there probably is a lot of question marks with the defensive backs right now, just because we haven't really seen them. But man, it's just I'm just not worried about him. I'm just not worried about him.
What does a healthy Will Johnson look like, Brock?
He looks like the best player in college football. That's what he looks like. And he looks like a top 5 NFL draft pick. And he looks like a guy that's going to lead the team in interceptions. That's what I think.
Will Johnson's agent in the building. That's crazy.
Heading into week 1, he was banged up.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he missed action. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't care how they tackle, to be honest. The only reason I disagree with you is because how many times did we see corners seal the outside in the running game in the last couple of years, right? Yeah. And also, too, giving up yards after catch. That's been a big MO of this defense, too. Is like you might get receptions on us underneath, but you're not going anywhere after you catch it.
Right.
Right. Otherwise, it's funny. I know what you mean, but like the Michigan thing of like, you're not going to play wide receiver unless you block. You're not going to play corner unless you can tackle. I don't care how good you can defend, right? That's just kind of been the mantra around Michigan. So, yeah, I'm excited for Will to have. We talked about this at the last show because Brock was -10 or whatever when Charles Woodson played. what a Will Johnson season would look like in that realm. I want to see him make a play every single week and get an interception damn near every single week and just be a star. You know, I want that kind of, because he already is, right? This dude's made big plays in the biggest games. He's only a junior. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, I want to see that lesser opponent just make plays, especially this now that you're healthy talk. And then, yeah, Jair Hill, again, Zeke Berry, living up to the hype. And yeah, the transfers come out and show that experience and show some depth. I guess we have a little bit of newer info here when it comes to the safeties. I still have Quentin Johnson listed as rotation behind Page. I think he's going to start next to Page to start the year.
Yeah.
And then Wesley Walker is, 6th year, right? Is a step ahead here and going to rotate. That's going to be your top 3 rotating. I think they're really excited about Jaden Mangum. He's adjusting, obviously, to the Michigan culture coming from Michigan State, learning some playbook stuff. I think as the year goes on, his role will expand. And I wouldn't be shocked if at some point you see kind of what I've laid out here, where Johnson is more rotating with Page and Walker and Mangum are maybe taking over that strong safety rover spot. But you could see situations, too, where Zeke Berry's out there and kind of slides in that spot. There's a lot of flexibility there. Brandon Hillman is a guy we've talked about a bunch, too, who's really, really talented, could have a Keon Saab-like ascension. But there's just a lot of players in front of him at safety as well as nickel. So he's going to have to try and carve out a role and take advantage of opportunities when he's given. And then, the question's still out there. It's irrelevant for Fresno State. Rod Moore will be a captain. He will be Coach Moore. He could potentially be player Moore later in the season. But yeah, for week 1, I want to see, I know what Makari Page is. In terms of him being a captain and taking that next step as a leader, it's not going to be something you see on the field. He's just a by example kind of guy. I don't think you're going to see a lot of changes there. I think we know what Quentin Johnson is. He was really, really good and underrated at the end of the year. So I want to see Walker and Mangum most of all. And then I want to see how those safeties get used in Wink's version of the defense.
Yeah, there's a lot of fluidity there in a good way, obviously, because you got Walker and Mangum, who both have had plenty of experience. Quentin Johnson, plenty of experience. Makari Page, plenty of experience. So you're going to see probably a combination of multiple guys out there. They've really liked what Wesley Walker's done this fall. Jaden Mangum too. He really is come on strong in the last.
It just felt like they were hedging a little bit. He might take a little longer.
Yeah, like the last week and a half, 2 weeks or so, he's come on really strong. I know he had a really good scrimmage a week and a half. I think it was a week ago. Yeah, they had a good scrimmage. He's been saying that he's been looking strong. He's tough. He's a good tackler, which kind of was his thing. If you looked at the advanced stats on Pro Football Focus, he was kind of the sure tackler of the group. So Mangum's going to play, and he's going to play early, and he's going to play often. That kind of the same thing with Walker. He's going to play all four. Really, if you look at all four of these guys with Makari and Quinton included, I mean, they're going to play often. Hillman absolutely going to play. But there's a lot of different things you could do with these guys, because that was kind of the main strength of what Michigan did in the portal, especially just with defensive backs on a whole. You brought in guys who did a lot of things well, not necessarily the same type of defensive back. You had, like, for example, Mangum was better against the run and was a better tackler than when Wesley Walker was better playing against the pass. So, you can kind of split guys up depending on scenario, and you both have strengths out there. So you'll see a lot of different safeties out there, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't kind of see that as them trying to fit different pieces of the puzzle together to see what fits. I just think that they've got guys who do things.
That's a spot where they can rotate, and they'll take
right.
advantage.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be plenty of rotation there, and a lot of good rotation. And obviously, whatever they decide to do with Rod Moore, that's just the cherry on top for when he comes back. So, yeah, I mean, the safety position is going to be is arguably their most veteran group if you just break down experience, and I think that that'll reflect when it comes to Saturdays.
Yeah, going off of that, you got 2 6th-year seniors and a 5th-year senior as the top 3 safeties in that room, and I'm looking to see smart football from them. Flock into the football. It's not the most overly talented group that Michigan has, but it's experience, like you said, Josh. And I'm just looking to see smart football. We saw flashes from Quentin Johnson last year in the Ohio State game in the Rose Bowl, forcing that fumble. Maybe looking to see a little bit more consistency from him as a starter, especially at the beginning of the season here. But this is a group that is fully capable of locking down that safety spot. And obviously, if Rod Moore decides to come back in, it'll be like you said, Josh, the cherry on top. And so, really, really good group and lots of experience.
Yeah, pre-Rod Moore injury, pre-transfer additions, I was like, Rod Moore, Makari Page, and Quentin Johnson back. You lose Saab, and then it's Brandon Hillman's kind of next guy up there.
Yeah.
Okay. And you lose Moore, and Saab obviously transfers to Bama before that. It's like, oh, now I'm like, man, this might be the group with the least amount of questions as far as depth goes. Because Walker can, to your point, Josh, Walker can also be a heavy hitter and a guy that can come up, and Mangum had some picks last year. Maybe they were opportunistic. I don't know. I haven't watched every Michigan State game, but yeah, I'm excited to see that group rotate. And then, yeah, if there is another level of consistency for Page and Johnson, okay. Right. Cherry on top kind of thing. We'll touch on special teams because we hardly have real quick, and then we'll get into some predictions for this week 1 game. Kicker sounds like it's going to be the Arkansas State transfer, Dominic Zavada. I think he's also going to handle kickoffs, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
Yeah. Tommy Doman, I think people don't realize they didn't use him a ton last year. He was a really good punter last year. I think there's a chance he's going to be one of the better punters in the conference this year. Excited about that.
Well, you hope you don't see him on.
No, but
you hope he's not that efficient.
No, not that. I mean, but good when you need him.
No, I know what you mean.
Look
Obviously.
what punting for Iowa has done.
Right.
Torrey Taylor.
Absolutely.
It's a weapon, man. So,
Absolutely.
I still think a young guy could rise up and take the spot, but I'm going to be very interested who's back on returns. It feels like, from what we've heard and seen, that the top guys, Morgan and Morris, could be back there. But, man, there are a lot of young dudes on this team who were really good returners in high school and have that potential. And I have defended the Ronnie Bell thing forever. It's a fluke. You can get hurt on any play. We heard when Rod Moore had his press conference, he acknowledged his injury was on a special teams drill. You can't not have these guys do it. It could happen at any point, right? Charles Woodson returned kicks. It's probably the reason he won a Heisman. So you want whoever's the most sure thing back there catching it. And if they also add a weapon of explosiveness and potentially longer returns, potentially touchdowns, great. If I can get that from somebody who's not my number 1 or number 2 receiver, though, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, look, special teams is important. It absolutely matters. And I know people kind of like laugh off special teams sometimes, but it's a crucial part of the game.
It's
I
special.
mean, it is special. It's so special that they self-titled it special teams.
Yeah.
No, it's like it's one of those things where when it's good, you don't talk about it. But when it's bad,
that's a good
it's
point.
very, very bad and very, very noticeable when you have a crap special teams. Like it's just one of those things where it doesn't get the necessary the praise it should receive for having a good special teams. But anyway, I digress. I think with kick and punt returner, I think they're just gonna go with what they know there. There hasn't really been some, information that's come out of camp that's really popped out to me in terms of the kick and punt return. I think that's just because they've got 2 guys back there like Samaj and Tyler who are both very good and capable. I definitely think Samaj is ready to take that next step. I know he said he kind of worked on his physical, his endurance, his physical fitness to kind of be able to complete those long returns, because he basically said, with that long kick return against Iowa, he just ran out of gas.
Yeah.
Because he was, just didn't have that built up physical fitness as a true freshman through the year. So I think, Samaj maybe does, obviously we'll do both. I mean, maybe we'll be the premier guy with both, but definitely going to be an impact there. Punter, Tommy Doman's going to be good. I don't expect much deviation there. Kicker, absolutely going to be Dominic Zavada. I've heard nothing but excellent things about that kid, his ability, even coming into Michigan. I mean, his stats were pretty darn good. I guess the other day when we talked to JB Brown, was it 2 weeks ago, maybe a little longer than that, he was 6 or 7 during camp from kicks 50 plus. The dude just has a cannon. Those are the type of efficiency and those numbers you'd like to see by your starting kicker. Very starter-like, very, very special-like, should I say, Jake Moody-esque in terms of the numbers.
Oh.
But he's I mean, if you're almost automatic from 50 plus, you're special. I mean, you don't just like walk onto a football field and kick from 50 plus, no problem. But ultimately, those have got to be translated to the game.
I almost made a reference, not realizing nobody would get it, because unless you have a son who watches Lego Movie 2 to 3 times a day, so.
I have not seen the Lego Movie, so I don't know.
Oh my God. There's this whole thing, like the main character is supposed to be like the one, like a Matrix, like prodigy. They're like, oh, you have the special. So that's been playing in my head this entire time. And then I'm like, oh yeah, no, nobody watches Lego Movie 2 to 3 times a day. Like,
yes. So, I mean, basically the main thing was like, the main takeaway was like, man, Michigan has a kicker like this. Yeah. They've got a kicker.
He's missed 1 extra point in 2 years as a starter. What was it? 71 of 72. He's 34 of 40 on kicks in 2 years.
Yeah,
as well.
I think that's a really good eval by the staff out of the portal. I mean, it was kind of it went under the radar for a long time, but that was just a really good eval. And I think it'll turn out to be an excellent take out of the portal for sure.
Yeah. Listen, if anyone tells you that special teams doesn't matter, you just turn on the 2024 Rose Bowl and watch how Michigan almost self-destructed there by having poor special teams in that game. A Samaj Morgan muff punt.
Non-ball knowers.
James Turner missed field goal, and obviously the one there at the end. But
he did miss a field goal. That's right.
Yeah. But listen, it matters, right? And it seems like Michigan has consistency there at kicker with Zavada, and as long as Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris can be reliable back there, me personally, I couldn't care less what happens after they catch the ball, as long as they catch the ball. That's the most important part of returning punts. And obviously it's trickier as a punt returner than as a kick returner. We'll see what Michigan does there if they keep the same guy for both those roles or split it up between the two of them. But
Yeah,
it's ball security, and it's the little things that win you games. And there could be a game this season where Michigan needs its special teams to be on point, and
there will be a game. I'll say it.
Absolutely.
There will be. There is
Happens every year. Happens every
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. No, I mean, they don't beat Illinois without Jake Moody. The Ohio State game could have been very different last year as well without
Yep.
Turner. And
I won't bring up a certain loss too, but that's what happens when you don't or not prepared in a special teams perspective. You lose a big rivalry game. So like it all starts and stops when people say special teams don't matter. All you need to do is bring up that loss, cut open that wound, and there you go. That proves the point that, yeah, it matters. It's important.
Yeah.
That was so dumb. Just the dumbest game I've ever watched in my life.
Yep.
Well, no, the rest of the game was fine, but that play was the dumbest. I remember I was at Waddy's house. And there was like 8 of us just sat there in silence. Like, that's not, no, right? Like, is there a flag? No, really? That's how? Okay, all right. That's how it's gonna be. Yeah, I'll be excited. I agree with you, Brock. If there's somebody back there that's sure-handed, that's enough for me. But I do miss just that feeling of, like, we talked about Jabril Peppers every time he was back there. I felt like he could house one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's such a fun weapon to have. And I think Morgan has that in him. So we'll see how it goes. But
Well, and the thing is, too, like the way college football has changed, they've neutered a return game so much. These, like, especially from a kick return perspective.
yeah,
I don't want to even say that it doesn't matter, but it's just like the what you do after you catch the ball. Like they've just
on kicks especially, because now that I can fair catch it anywhere and move it to the 25, it's
right,
like,
exactly.
You should bring almost nothing out on kick returns.
Right, exactly. Right? Yeah, and even the punt
point.
game last year, like half the punts they let bounce. You know, and just kind of let it just do whatever.
Yeah, that was kind of annoying at times.
Yeah.
But all right, Michigan, Fresno State, week 1. This game lost a little bit of luster when Jeff Tedford unfortunately had to resign for a second time due to health reasons. I don't remember the name of the interim coach now. I thought I had it in front of me. I don't. Interim coach Tedford's obviously been really good for that program. There was a guy who coached there for a few years in between Tedford while he resigned. Maybe you've heard of him, Kalen DeBoer. Program was pretty good under him for a couple of years, right? So, look, there's a lot of folks that tell you this is probably the second best team in the Mountain West just because Boise State exists. They're not nobody. This is, like it's funny because, like, for Michigan, it's like, oh, it's their non-conference, blah, blah. They're probably a top 50 team in college football. They were playing UConn and whatever, who were like 112th, stuff like that in previous years, right? So this isn't a complete pushover. They're definitely more offense, right? They are, like I said, I think they're going to try and pass the ball. I think they probably want to try and establish the run just because it needs to be better this year. So they're probably going to be like, hey, if we can run it against Michigan, that's a great thing for us moving forward, right? It's not that Fresno's coming in here thinking like we're going to lose this game no matter what. They're going to come in and want to win this game. But I also think there's things they're like, hey, if we can do it in this game, even if we lose, it helps us a ton moving forward. So that might change up the game plan a little bit. On defense, I think they could be susceptible in the passing game, which will be interesting with Alex Orji, obviously. And somebody else already mentioned it. But you have a very interesting at defensive end. I just forgot Corey. What's his last name? Foreman, former top USC recruit. So one of the tackles will have to deal with him all day. So that could be interesting. For those of you who are in the betting, it's currently minus 21.5. So a 3-score advantage for the Wolverines. Over under of 45.5. What is that implied? Like 41, 38-7, something like that. 38-7 is kind of the implied score there. So what are your thoughts? Who's going to perform well? What do you think Michigan's going to do? What about score?
Yeah, look, I think Fresno State is a good team, but I don't think it's a hot take to say that Michigan's just better and they'll just be better. I think Michigan. I've got Michigan winning was 35-10. I didn't look at the betting numbers, so I wasn't. It's kind of right where I thought it would be in terms of the over under and stuff. But I got Michigan winning 35-10. I just think their defense is gonna just come out and make a statement week one. Yeah, I think performs well. I think you'll see Donovan Edwards have a couple of touchdowns. I don't even want to begin to comment on the quarterbacks because I don't even know what their plan's going to be for that position yet. So, I mean, I can't really say, oh yeah, Alex Orji's going to come out and, so anyway, I do think Donovan Edwards is going to have a good game week one, but I think the defense is going to make a statement, get a lot of pressures early and often. And, they should walk away with a pretty easy win week one.
I've got Michigan winning this game 27-3.
Ooh.
And a little bit lower scoring than what most people are predicting, but I think the defense is going to be dominant, and I can't predict Michigan to score a whole lot of points on offense until I see what they can do. So I'm going to go 27-3. Michigan covers, but under the point total there. And I think Zeke Berry shows out on defense at nickel. I think he's going to have a really nice game, and I think he's set up for a big season.
Yeah, I am just so obsessed with this 30 number. Michigan scoring 30, keeping teams under 30. Obviously, I don't think Fresno's going to get anywhere near that. I do think Michigan will score 30. But my guess would probably be 31-7, and I wouldn't be shocked if that 7 comes late. And maybe some backups are in. I think this defense is going to be just unbelievable week one. They're going to get pressure, sacks, turnovers. They're going to give the offense a short field. We're going to see the ball get run a ton. I think Orji's going to get some big runs. It's going to get people excited too. Like, I think some bulldozer type runs where people are like, oh, okay, right. And hopefully, to Josh's point, we don't know what the split share will end up being, but hopefully enough in the passing game to like maybe ease some folks. And that could be just the simple short routes. Like I said, some crossing routes where Morgan, Morris, Loveland, whoever, take some short routes and get some yards after catch. One deep shot would be fantastic though. Give me the Roman Wilson Hawaii touchdown, right? Like, I'd love a play action, just one deep shot where they're like, okay, right? Okay, he can do it.
Yeah.
Even if it is against Fresno, I think that would just be a really cool introduction. And then obviously my fear would be with the night game and that kind of weird dynamic, just that the whole Bowling Green thing is in the back of my mind.
I keep forgetting it's a night game. Oh.
It's so stupid. Sorry. Brock has to be so excited.
Oh, it's horrible.
I love night games, but against Fresno State, I don't know.
You got to come with better. You got to come with better than that, than Fresno State.
And we've talked about this with Fox being the primary driver of the TV deal.
Yeah.
You're not going to see a lot of big Michigan games at night, unless it's the secondary or third game. And we've already seen once now, we reported it, that it looks like Michigan's not going to have a night game now with Oregon, that's going to be moved to noon as part of a trade because Oregon State and Oregon was going to be noon. And now that's going to be a night game, as a trade-off between Fox and NBC. So I don't know. Yeah. Why couldn't so the Texas one, this one I can easily explain why Texas is in a night game. That was literally part of Texas being allowed into the SEC early. So that game was supposed to originally be in Texas this year. And because Texas was in the Big 12, the TV networks are determined by the home game, right?
Yep.
Because they were in the Big 12, Fox would have had that game no matter what. If Texas would have gone to the SEC, then ESPN would have had the game. So literally to let them leave early, they agreed to switch where the game was in Michigan, which would give Fox the broadcast rights. And then they obviously chose that to be part of their big noon kickoff. So for the Big Ten, noon is the primary slot. It's not night games, right? The SEC is still going to have their big night games on ABC coverage and ESPN coverage now that they've moved over there. So the CBS thing's what's going to be weird for me.
Yeah.
I know we saw it a little bit last year, but I just associate the graphics, the sounds, everything about CBS coverage with SEC football.
Big noon kickoff.
I didn't say nude, did I?
No. It's
Did
you see the meme or I think it was against Michigan State during the COVID year. Someone had a closed captioning on their TV, And when they said big noon kickoff, it said big nude kickoff.
Now that would bring in ratings.
Yeah.
Well,
They needed a big nude kickoff for the year 2020.
I guess depending on
Michigan State.
Depending on who's involved, I guess, right? Like, here comes Lee Corso. No.
Oh, God.
That's ESPN. That was a dumb joke. But anyway, I was trying to think of the worst possible one. And he popped in my head, wearing just the mask on his.
Oh. I'm glad I self-censored myself because I was going to make a joke and I'm not going to say it.
Good.
I'm growing up. I'm maturing.
I don't know about that.
There you go.
I'm maturing.
So, all right. So it sounds like none of us are really expecting like a massive blowout.
No,
I don't know.
I think that could happen.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I could.
I don't know if that's what Michigan's looking to accomplish in the first game per se. You know,
Right.
but hey, man, if Donovan comes out, and I mean that's going to be the big question. Do we see the Donovan we saw in 2022 when Corum was hurt? Right, or when they were both healthy against Penn State, or obviously, you know, his big runs against Washington. If he looks like he can, because we talked about this on a prediction show too. Ideally, Donovan Edwards is your best player, and if he looks like a guy that's going to get that 1,500 yards rushing, receiving combination, absolute playmaker, and he blows up in this first game, that'd be a fantastic thing to see.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, anybody showing up. Everybody's talking again about the QB thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think rhythm is so important. I think they're both going to play just because of the way the game plays out. But like, are we literally going to see Warren on the second series or something like that, or like where Warren starts and Orji rotates? I don't know.
I think it depends on who you ask. Like from an us perspective, I think it depends on who you ask, because one, there's a contingent that says, I mean, although I think it's smaller, there's a contingent that says, oh, Warren is, done everything to be the starter.
Yeah.
However, there's a larger, much louder contingent that's saying, it's going to be Orji. Orji's the starter. Orji's done, or, Orji, it has shown more than what Davis Warren can, but that still doesn't answer whether you're going to see both. And I think you will see both week one.
I think we've reached that point too, where like the coaches haven't decided or haven't announced, and there's this void of information. And I think sometimes people start to present their very strong opinions as not necessarily as fact, but like, right, this is where I think it would go. And like, oh, I'll tell you what, because even when we've talked to some sources and stuff, like you can tell there's some personal framing on what they think or would do.
A lot of it is opinion based for sure.
Right. Especially now that we're getting so close to it. I just struggle to think about what we've heard for the first 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks even, about Orji. And to think that something is flipped right at the end here. And again, that doesn't have any impact on who plays and how much. But I would, if this does flip enough, that's like Warren's the guy and Orji's getting special packages, I'm going to be interested to know like what went into that decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Look,
I wouldn't object to it. I'm trusting the coaches on this, and I like Davis Warren a lot. I think Warren would be a lot better than people realize.
I'm part of the if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one quarterback argument. I just don't believe that a 2 quarterback system can be successful. And maybe they don't have a quarterback. I mean, we don't know. So I just don't want them to see this constant flip-flop between two guys. I would rather them pick a guy, pick your horse, and run with it through the rest of the year. Or if it's just going that bad, you make a switch. Kind of like the Joe Milton, Cade McNamara kind of situation where they basically had no other choice but to bench a guy. Right. I just don't know if a 2 quarterback system can be successful, especially against Texas. I just don't know. I mean, yeah, the special packages are nice and all, but at what point does the special packages just become predictable like you would with Jabril Peppers? You knew when Jabril Peppers was on the field, you knew exactly what was coming, and so did the defense. And a good like 7 out of 10 plays were very short yardage gains. So I don't know. I mean,
he was better as a decoy than he was in the Wildcat.
Right. And I mean, you could probably use kind of an Orji as a decoy, but I think he's better than that. So
100%. Yeah, if you're using him in that situation, they're just selling out to stop the run when he's
I'm glad I don't have to make that decision.
Yeah.
I wish I was getting paid enough to make that decision, but I'm not making that call.
Oh, that's funny.
My take is that it is what it is.
Oh, good call, Brock. Good call. It is what it freaking is.
It is what it is.
And your average fan, that's a good point. That's Michigan's offense, so you know what's coming. Stop it. I mean,
That's
fair. Fair.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not going to get super creative either way, right?
I don't think anything like drastically changes on with both guys. They're not going to change their offensive philosophy regardless of who their quarterback is. I think you can do a little bit more in the run game with Orji, but is that the difference maker? I mean, that's kind of if you ask people, their opinion, they say that's the difference maker. Mm-hmm. That's what separated Orji from Warren. But then you talk about Warren, and he can do a little bit more with his arm. Not necessarily he won't be able to give you what a JJ could give you, for example. So I do think it's close, and almost to the point where I don't think it matters who starts who takes the first snap on Saturday. I mean, it could be Davis Warren for all we know, take the first snap, and then Orji comes in and totally performs well. So I mean, I think you got to have a guy. You got to pick a guy and you got to run with it. I mean, yeah, maybe week 1 is a tryout. I mean, we'll see what Sharon says on Monday. I doubt he gives anything of substance because that's just what it's always been. But
it'd be fun if you named a starter, though.
Oh, I would like it.
I think you're picking Orji not even just for who he is today, but who you think he can be too. And he's not going to get there if you're not letting him play. So
right.
But all right. So yeah, we're gonna have game week coverage. I can't believe it. Like Josh said, we already know about some press conferences for the week. Sharon Moore, the assistant coaches and coordinators, players are going to be up. So we're gonna have tons of coverage coming out of that. I think there's still going to be some intel that continues to leak, especially as they make the transition into week prep. There's going to be less rotation. It's going to be a little bit more obvious, who's playing where and such when it comes to depth chart and game planning. So you'll want to make sure, if you're not subscribed already, michigan.rivals.com, head over there. We'll be posting information to the den, and we'll obviously have content all week in terms of previewing week 1, Fresno State, any other information that comes out. And then, a lot of stuff coming in. Yes. All right. Yes, your average fan. We did at the beginning of the show. Talked a little bit about the NOA news or lack thereof. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh, we covered that. Props to me.
What Famel said about Orji was he's taken the majority of first team reps, which is true. And that's to our previous point. Like, that's what we've been reporting all fall camp. Again, we're more talking about how much they might split, how much Warren might play, when he could play, stuff like that. So, all right. So this has been fun. If you do want more information on the NOA stuff, that's on the website as well. Unless that gets leaked, which, oh my God, of course it probably would be ridiculous. But unless that gets leaked, I don't expect to hear anything new for quite a while.
Yeah, I hope this is the last of the leaks. Unless there's some sort of like magical resolution that happens between now and whenever.
Which I don't expect.
Yeah, I hope this is the last of it. I mean, we got to get through the stupid documentary that's coming out here in a couple of days. But yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid.
I don't think I'm gonna watch it live.
I won't watch it. I don't know. I will watch
Brock,
it.
You're gonna watch it, right?
I'll probably watch it live.
Yeah.
What time is it going? Did they announce what time it's going?
They usually come out at like 3 a.m. So I'm not watching it then. But I mean,
that's right. It's Netflix. Duh. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it when it comes out. But this because I know a good portion of what this documentary is about.
I think I'm gonna react to what's on Twitter and then decide from there. Yeah. I mean, I might watch it just to be able to speak to it or whatever. But like, I don't know. I'm not super interested in it.
We all know it's going to be a fluff piece. I mean, I know for a fact it's Stallion's making his claim that he was the lone wolf, whatever, and none of the coaches were involved, which can be corroborated with the NOA that also says that they're not involved. So there you go, your average fan. You just asked for the Cliff Notes. There it is. It's him, how he learned to do his signs, and he didn't do anything wrong, and that no one else was involved. There you go. He predicted it for you.
He put out the so he put out the he didn't put out, but the emails from that first job he applied for got leaked. And he was talking about how, information is going to come forward that's going to show, the media, the NCAA, we're going to expose them or whatever. So that's
allegedly there's information in there that makes the NCAA look bad, which is part of why they released the NOA ahead of it. But I'll believe it when I see it at this point.
Yeah. And then somebody posted too that Stallions did put out a statement already. I don't have the full one, but the NOA says Connor's friends and family sent him film from games that they attended with tickets Connor purchased, but there is no rule against that. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
But to the point that and this is what I've been trying to tell people, like the idea that this is a web of spies, that's not what it is. Like, I mean, that's an interesting, that's what his case is going to be. He thought he found a loophole, a gray area in this outdated rule.
Who the hell knows? This whole thing is stupid.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Dude sounds like a psychopath in those emails. When I heard 700-page manifesto, and then I saw the used vacuums, the countless used vacuums on the porch. But anyway,
it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. It is what it is.
Got that right.
So we will make sure you're following Michigan Rivals on Twitter, us on Twitter as well. I think we'll update some of our game day coverage, what that's going to look like this year. Dennis obviously will have his post-game live show once the game ends on Saturday. We'll be back Sunday at 7. That'll continue. Obviously during the week, we'll have the content relative to the press conferences and stuff like we discussed. Anything other than that, we'll make sure to let you know. But easiest way to find out, subscribe, notification bell, so you know when we do go live with any content, especially with game week going on. So we're 6 days away or 5 days away, depending on when you listen to this. Michigan, Fresno State. But we'll see you guys in a week. Hail to the podcast.